All right, third time's the charm. Hey, everybody, welcome to the monthly free episode of GMG. Yeah, I'm unraveling in real time right now, as you guys may have noticed. I just tested this twice unlisted, and the audio was completely fine, so sound off in the comics. Sounds like it's in a dream now. Oh, for fuck's sakes. It shouldn't. You can hear me? Okay, great. Okay, great. Here we go. It's working. Fantastic. The chat is freaking out because this is technically my fifth, but my third time live today in the last half an hour. I walked into the back into the studio and looked around and was like, this is like 25 minutes worth of work to get this actually set up to do this with. I was like, I got to put a lav mic on. I don't even know if the batteries are good in these lavs. Like, I walked around and I was like, someone in the chat said if I tried turning it back off and turning it back on again. And I'd like the thing in my head was my computer was off when I got here this morning. So like it was booted fresh. And for some reason, OBS just decided, or YouTube, I don't know which, just decided it was going to explode today. And yeah, and now it's working. Malef says, bro, people think streaming is easy. It is not. Literally, I haven't changed anything in this room from the last two times I tried to go live, except turning off my computer, which was off when I got here this morning, and turning it back on again. And for some reason now it works. Holy Christ, I'm living under a curse. This is like a microcosm of how my life has been for the last 2 weeks. So before we were joking about me being dead, now we're just joking about the fact that apparently I'm living under some kind of curse. Which is fine. I didn't want to do it sitting over here because now I got to start this whole thing over again. I can barely see my monitor. But yes, this is the monthly free episode. For everybody in the chat, welcome. Thank you so much for hanging in there while we got this stuff going. I will redo everything that sounded like I was currently being subject of an exorcism the first time we tried to do this, which was like 5 minutes worth of talking. But yes, here we go. I'm alive. I'm here. Happy Spooktober. I hope everybody's having a great day and a great week. I'm gonna try and from like way the hell over here. I think that's image capture. I can barely see this, and my monitor is way too far away. You know what I can do? I can go to this actually. I can go over to this shot, and what I can do is I can change. Maybe this will work. Maybe if I do it this way, I can change this to the other. There we go. Okay, and then I just got to change my audio input from this to this. And I can show you guys what the hell has been going on. So if I go like this, and I go to USB audio capture, hopefully this will not work. And I can show you guys some pretty pictures. Because like, I really wanted to show you guys pretty pictures. The audio might jump to the other mic though if I'm not careful. You know what? Fuck it. I don't care this much. I can just show you the pictures again. We'll figure this out. We'll figure out what's happening. But yes, I've been busily doing so many projects this last 2 weeks. I was trying to show everybody just what's been going on with like my sort of like the timeline I've been working under. Hang on. That's a video capture. I just want an image. Show me an image capture. Mic, this, that. No, not video capture. I want this. I just want to show you guys an image. And I can't. Oh, you know what I can do? Oh, no, my keywords are there. Fuck it. I don't care anymore. I'm all done. I was trying to show you guys pictures from last time. But I can't because I got to go over there. So, hey. I've been painting a lot. I had like 4 different projects I wanted to get done this past week. And I had set it up all so much that, that numerically we're caught up with the streams now. Don't cross the streams. Crossing the streams would be bad. Okay, I can actually do this. I can. Audio capture, video capture, window capture. I just want an image. There it is. Okay, I gotcha. And we're gonna do this. Here we go. Oh, I did it. Oh my God, I did it. Okay, get excited. I can actually show you guys pictures now, I think, without this being too terrible. Okay, I got it figured out. Okay, so what have I been working on? Okay, for the last week or so, and the last 2 weeks, I've been painting all kinds of stuff for different projects. The first of which is this right here, which is I just did this like from like 10 feet away on my monitor, trying to guess what a drop down window was. This is, of course, the Kestrel Colonial Force for Infinity's N5, and I just painted them up. Jordan, however, painted up a bunch of new stuff as well. He painted up the Yu Ching side of this, the JSA, which I'm trying to show right here. He didn't quite get them done for our recording yesterday, but we played all 3 games of Operation Sandtrap, which I'm super excited about. I'm very excited about Infinity, obviously. If you guys have been on the channel for a while, my like most played game, probably on GMG, is Infinity. I've played between N2, N3, and N4. I've never played N1 on the channel. We never recorded it. Although there is like a picture battle report of N probably 1 out there from like the Let Adventure forum, maybe from ages ago. But yeah, I prepped and built all the terrain and got the table ready for the 3 missions from Sandtrap. And Sandtrap is a lot like, basically Corvus Belli is following Games Workshop in the direction of doing a split box from like veteran players when we change editions and new players wanting to get in. And Sandtrap is basically a launch box. It's like the Skaventide box or the Leviathan box for 40k and for Age of Sigmar, in that it doesn't contain any rules or profiles. It assumes you know the app exists and the digital rules exist. And it gives you 3 narrative missions and enough stuff to play it. So you get a full token set, full set of terrain, full like gaming mat, well, like full gaming mat, but a 2x3 gaming mat, and 2 armies to play with, bespoke army lists. And we basically ran through the launch box, and yesterday we played all 3 games, which was a lot of fun. And now my like, Tom Cruise, the Yu Ching side, sorry, the JSA side. It's because he painted them yellow. I immediately said Yu Ching. And yeah, and so like the sort of like painting time and prep time that took, ate a bunch of last week, so I didn't get my live show done last week, and then the week before that was Canadian Thanksgiving. So short story long, that's why I haven't been around for the last couple like of these live shows. Because I've been knee deep in getting stuff painted. We also, and this I'm very excited about because you're going to get to see it tomorrow, recorded the Halloween Spooktober, like extravaganza, me and Jay, and we went through and did a Let's Play for Don't Look Back 2nd Edition. So you guys can see that coming up tomorrow. It's going to feature a few of your favorite characters from other games that we've done, so specifically from like Perilous Tales, but also from Don't Look Back, because one of the key features of the new Don't Look Back is that you can use your own, you can make up your own characters. So we made profiles for Skelder and Mully, who are some of my Perilous Tales like paranormal investigators, and they get to go on an adventure with the teens, with a few of the different like Don't Look Back teens. So Jay and I hadn't played that game in a while. We had a blast doing it. That was part of last week's recording too, and you'll get to see that episode tomorrow. And so, Jesus Christ, I'm surrounded by boxes too that I haven't shown you guys. And then this week I have like a bunch of all other stuff I have to do. So I need to paint an army for this, which is the Mechanicum Tagmata stuff for Legions Imperialis, because on Halloween I'm recording a Legions Imperialis game or 2, which is great because I'll get to show off these, which is the new Gothic Sector terrain boxes from Guild Force 9, which you'll see the GMG review of this weekend. Yeah, I've been so deep in hobby projects that I haven't even had a chance to do reviews. Like I've had no time basically getting stuff ready because there's so much stuff coming out right now, and also this, which is the Battle for Singapore 2-player box set from James at War Cradle, James Hewitt. He also wrote, of course, the newer edition of Necromunda, Adeptus Titanicus, and Fallout Factions. So yeah, if you haven't been following his game design career, this is a 10 mil epic scale dystopian wars game in hard plastic, which is pretty cool, from War Cradle. So my docket's been pretty full last couple of weeks. But anyway, let's go say hi to the chat and see what's up. Oh, and also because, sorry, I guess I was just to round up the N5 thing, because I'm like recapping stuff I've now said 3 times in a row. Jordan and I are also doing what's available currently. So like, for instance, this is all the Pano stuff that's currently available for Kestrel. So like a Squalo Mark II, I got a Trauma Dock and a Machinist in there, a War Core, some remotes, like some Armbot remotes and some basic remotes. I got Maximus in there, and Richard Quinn, who's like a special character. So that means that the plan is when N5 comes out, the next 3 weeks you're going to get to watch 3 Sandtrap games, and then when N5 comes out, Jordan and I are going to use the same armies and play the missions from the N5 universe book. Because there's no rule book, physical rule book right now for the game, but there's 3 missions in each of the products basically we can play through to like try out the new edition. So having played N5 now, 3 games, we're going to do an escalation from 200 to 250 to 300 using the universe book missions, which also feature our factions basically in conflict, which is going to be fun. And it's a good way to start a new army for a new edition of a game. And of course, Infinity's my favorite game. So hooray, new edition. It's been too long. I said this to Jordan yesterday. I was like, hey, it feels real good to play some Infinity because we haven't played in a while because we're in that in between. Not only were we in between seasons, we're fully in between editions. So like neither of us really felt like playing Infinity until we knew what we were doing or working on our, you know what I mean? Like it was just in that hiatus zone where we knew everything was coming. So we hadn't done anything yet. So let's say hi to everybody in the chat who has been good enough to hang out. Chompy Bits is here. Ignovus is here. T-Bird's here. Gary Lee's here. Chris Sly's here, banging some pots and pans together. Andrew B's here. Jamie Whiteside's here. Molly Landgraf's here. Ryan Dunphy's here. Ignovus is here. Brian Krantz is here. Bruce Games Rides is here. Lamashda is here. My man Malev the Shinobi's here. If you haven't checked out his Joint Ops project in, I don't know, wherever there's social media for Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team, you should go check it out because he's been hard at work doing some fan content for Kill Team. Gary Lee's here. Psychotic Storm is here. Dan Fox here. Daniel Brammer's here. Chompy Bits. Try not to repeat. Gazman616 is here. And Andrew B is here. Thanks for waiting for me to wake up. Yeah, no worries, man. Thanks for hanging in there while I got whatever the demons are that are in all my electronics to work. Tom Kush says, sweet, I thought I'd missed it while I was doing groceries, but the repeated notifications gave me hope. Yeah, it's true. Malev says, it's supposed to be camera on, face talk, super straightforward. It is never that straightforward. Actually, no, it is. It's like I have a bad relationship with technology. It's like a toxic, like partner basically, where like it's good. It's reinforcingly bad and then good for like small stretches that makes me think everything is fine and then goes back to bad so that I am emotionally harmed by being in the relationship I have with streaming. That's why I hate streaming. Angry Space Marine Infinity's here. Mike Forson's here. Mike Forson says, if only we'd be frozen and thawed back when the audio starts working. Oh, wait, there it is. Yeah. It's just, the problem is that like I get progressively angrier and sweatier as the attempts go on, as I storm around the studio being like, why does nothing fucking work ever? It's funny because listening to that little bit of audio that you guys did have in there, it actually distinctly sounds like an audio problem I've been having recording in the back studio that I've had to like figure out a fix around because there's no way to know that it's happening while it's happening. And it's like a clipping. It's like the audio is being slightly compressed. And then because it's being compressed, but the video is running along a different timeline now, there's like a gap all of a sudden and it snaps back to being compressed. And there's a gap and it snaps back to being compressed. And it sounds like we're all in the witness protection program. And I've had to figure out audio surgery basically to fix the audio so we haven't lost a bunch of content. There was like 5 things that we recorded where the audio was screwed up like that. And in fact, all 3 Infinity games are screwed up like that too. Because I know the fix now, I'm not so worried about it. I can fix the audio. It's just like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with like how long the computer is running for. It's just sometimes OBS decides it's going to randomly have like audio compression issues from different mics and different cameras, and sometimes it doesn't. It's fantastic. Ian Millington Davies is here. Time Guy's here. Who else is here? Christopher Chetwood's here. Atragon X. Nick Butler's finally here. Fantastic, Nick. Good to see you. Psychotic Storm. Dan Brammer. Andrew B, thank you for the super chat, man. Oh, I like that Andrew B has turned into my Flavor Flav. He's my hype man for remembering to mention Patreon. I don't think I even mentioned Patreon on this one because I'm so flustered. Ultra Mentor here is hi, Matt. Ghost Mutton's here. Very Silent Mouse is here. Friend Man is here. And I think I've kind of caught up to things. So I'm going to go up in the chat again to where we're not talking about October or audio. and just jump into some questions from the chat. Then we'll read some questions from the mailbag from the patrons, who get their own little like separate questionnaire list that we always go through till like basically until this is over. And then, yeah, and then we're going to be done. And I have no idea what time I started now. So I have no idea how long this is going to run for. This is going to be great. Ryan Dunphy says, I recently updated to Windows 11 and did nothing but issues trying to figure out why my audio was just being very garbage. My setup had not changed at all. So I get the struggle. This doesn't seem to be even like anything changing. Like OBS isn't updating. It's just sometimes there's compression issues. Sometimes there isn't. Out of nowhere, and I don't know why. And like my usual sort of like, it's funny because I've ended up having like almost like a ritualistic like rites of ignition now, where like I make sure my computers are off and then back on before I start. So like I know there's no like memory issues, you know what I mean, when they've been cycling on for too long, so they can clear their caches. Like, but yeah, it just doesn't seem to fucking matter. It just happens no matter what. Nick Butler says, hey, well done, Malev to Shinobi. That one box challenge has been amazing. It has been amazing, and I hope you guys are having a great time with it, and that you guys have gotten to pour through some of the entries right now, because there is an absolute ton of them. Zug1974 says, holy smokes, Let Adventure Forum? I haven't been there in forever. I also haven't been there in forever, but they have done some of the most... It's funny. I feel like the Let Adventure Forum, in a lot of ways, is... the tabletop hobby almost like time capsuled in the form that it was in when I was the most nostalgic for it, if that makes sense, where it still felt like it had all these unexplored corners. The internet has kind of destroyed that for me. The unexplored feels less unexplored and more like hidden now, or like sequestered away. Whereas the Let Adventure Forum was very much this like, we do it because we can. You know what I mean? We do this thing, we make up, like, people who would just make up a miniature game based on their favorite TV show, or convert miniatures based on their favorite movie, or just because. Like, there was a real, like, sort of joy about everything that happened in Let Adventure Forum, and it covered, like, it covered everything, basically, tabletop gaming. I used to haunt the whatchamacallit, the post-apocalyptic and sci-fi sections the most, but they had some very cool stuff. And some very cool games came out of Let Adventure Farm, like Pulp Fiction or Pulp Alley came out of Laugh. Was it Future Wars? Victory Decision Future Wars came out of Laugh. A bunch of very cool things that came out of like different people just getting together and being like, I'm excited to make a game about X. Let's try, and just go and do it. Nick Butler says, I love the Infinity series. I'm looking forward to the P versus NP release. Yes. Time Guy says, freeloader stream. I hope y'all had a good Halloween weekend. Yeah, Halloween weekend was interesting here. It was a bit manic downtown. There wasn't as much like Friday, Saturday night drunkery as I was expecting there to be, because it was very nice out this weekend. And I live right near downtown in the city I live in St. Catharines. And usually there's lots of like, you know, like the 20-somethings stumbling around dressed like whatever the hot item of this year is. It was... I was expecting more Jokers and Harley Quinns than I saw. Probably because that movie completely flopped. What was the best costume I saw? I didn't see very many good creative ones this year. Yeah, there was not a lot. There's a lot of stuff for kids though, which was good. And like downtown had like a Halloween sort of like candy trail and a whole bunch of other things that were great for the kids. So it was a good day. Millington Davey says, is the Christmas N5 box like a 1-hour Christmas morning success? Okay, good question. No. Unless you already play N5 and have the rules and the stats and the apps. Infinity labors under a couple of problems there. And I might retract that for the starter box, the Essentials box, because it's just 6 models. That one may be... there's going to be a couple of things that it labors under forever, in that like the metal miniatures take a bit more time to assemble than you know, other miniatures. Even just so much as like you have to cut the bases. That might not seem like a big thing. That's actually really intimidating for hobbyists. I can't count the number of people that were commenting on the Sand Trap review I did, being like, I'm just out at metal minis. Like that's a wall for people now. The industry moving to HIPS plastic in such a like dramatic way, you know what I mean? Like War Machine doing it now with their new 2-player starter set. Like it's become an actual hurdle for people to build metal miniatures, where that was just what you built back, 15, 20 years ago. And unless they move more, like even with their non-metal miniatures, they're still cast like metal miniatures. So like the fact that the plastic bases need to be sliced and sliced in various different ways for the miniature to be attached to the base requires a level of competency that means that like Wargaming for Dummies element of a good Christmas morning test thing, where like you pop and play, like you're just putting stuff on the table and playing, and it's like a 15, 20 minute setup. It's hard for Infinity to get over that hurdle, basically, without basically having their Aristea miniatures be Infinity miniatures, and that wouldn't be a terrible idea. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily pass that test. The Essentials box, which is their starter set, may, and I think we're gonna have to look at that when it comes out. But I didn't actually get a copy of Sandtrap to review. I bought one. The patrons paid for it. I had early access because I'm a Warcore, but Jordan and I split the box, and I actually just ordered it in because I hadn't heard anything from Corvus Belli. I think they bought a bunch of advertising this time around. I know that the painters at Mini Wargaming were painting Infinity stuff for the first time in a long time, so I think maybe Mini Wargaming is doing something for them, which they probably had to pay for. And then obviously Beasts of War gets paid every time they do one of these to do that stuff too, right? They do the big like paid promotion. They do their Infinity Weeks and stuff. So like maybe they were just happy with that. But I went and bought a copy because I wanted to have it and try it out and show it to you guys. It's my favorite game. So the patrons you can thank for like literally all the N5 content that you're going to see now is thanks to the patrons. So thank you, patrons, for doing that, because it's my favorite game and I wouldn't want it any other way. What else we got? Zug974 says, don't look back. We just played that yesterday. It is a great game. Skelter and Mully. Yes, that is my spoonerism for Mulder and Scully. Although I think by the end of the game, I just start saying Mulder and Scully because I keep screwing it up. You'll see it tomorrow though. Jay and I had a lot of fun playing it. And Jay and I immediately went to a place where we're just like, why should you have this book in your collection? Because you can literally redo any grimdark thing that you want to do using this book. Like you could reskin 40k and have like a 40k Gene Stealer hunting, guardsman or something. Like you could do anything you want with this. And now with the make your own characters, make your own bad guy rules, there's lots of like room for that book just being a great book to have in your collection. Fun Easter egg, the Don't Look Back rulebook glows in the dark. Yes, it does. Atragon says, if you're not using Penelope Haberdashery, I'll be sad. Penelope Haberdashery is not a time traveler, so she exists in the Old West. So in the canon of my and Jay's different miniature gaming adventures, Penelope Haberdashery has to be only in, it's like Polly Prissy Pants, has to be only in certain Old West games instead. Dan Brammer asks, is it okay to ask whatever happened to Dam 25? Dam 25 is still going. I'm actually doing a bit with it, with Dave and Jake from Build Paint Play next week. And we're going to play more of it, but I ran out of opponents. Nobody messaged me to play. I played everybody who messaged me to come in. And so it didn't really peter out, but I think like the initial hype was super exciting and then people started doing their own things. And yeah, I ran out of opponents basically. I didn't want to reuse a bunch of opponents. So it's still going. Like it's not going to end. We're going to go into the end of the year doing it. Right. So hopefully with fall, I think what happens is summer happens and then everybody gets busy and then we don't have as many opponents coming over the summer, and then fall happens and we pick it back up because we just started school and everybody's a little bit busy for that period, but then fall and winter I get a lot more people coming back in. Chris Chetwood says, are you going to be doing any videos on OBWG? Would love to see some of those in action. OBWG. I need more than an acronym because my brain. Did you see the number of games I'm sitting next to right now? Old Big World Game? Old Ogre Bowl, what shit game? I don't know what that stands for. Tell me in the chat. Friedman says, hey GMG, just wanted to say thanks for all the content. Really enjoying your videos. Thank you so much, friend man. And then Malev says 6,000 downloads on Malev's joint action so far. That's awesome. And Matt says, I feel like it's been forever since I was able to make one of these. Well, thank you so much. Malev asks questions I can't answer. Dun Grizzly says, at least I got for the end. Hey all. Dun Grizzly, this is not the end because this has been a nightmare to get going. So we are at the beginning still. Ryan Nummy says, I haven't been able to hobby much lately. It's been I'll post the adorable reason for Discord. Oh, amazing. And then Gizmo Mathboy says that's frustrating, the clipping program. Yeah, like it's funny because it was one of those things where I thought it was like a memory issue on the laptop, and then it became just an OBS issue because there is a 0% chance that any of the recording I do, no matter how many cameras I hook up, like that computer, that Mac in the back, it's like a 2019. So it's an older, it's not an Intel either. It's like an M1. But it has like 40 gigs of, it's 40 gigs of RAM and an 8 gigabyte video card. So like nothing should have a problem processing on that thing. Like it's an incredible, like powerful machine when it comes to doing that stuff. So I don't know. Dan Sprinkle says, hey Ash, I agree with Andrew. Ash is totally worth the support. Well, thank you so much. And Brian Sheen says, are any of your apps pinned for memory or processor resources while you're using the recording? Nothing. There's nothing else running. It's the first thing I do is I turn everything else off. In the back, the only other thing that's running is the camera monitors for the whatchamacallit cams, the AI cams, but it's not using any memory. Like I've checked, it's funny because I've watched my task manager while this is happening and nothing else is using memory. Like there's no processing issues. Emil Davey says, for the snow chains, thank you so much. We're going to need it. Time Guy says, when did Wargaming start receiving constant bug fixes and has it gone too far? Okay, that's a good question. So I think one of it's funny because I've seen this has been sent to me a lot recently, is I think one of the things that I think this used to be a thing that was in music, like in music and in film, was it's very easy as a person making something to go to the people who like your thing the most and listen to them and think that should be the feedback I most heavily interpret when I go forward into making my next thing or doing my next thing, because they're the ones paying my bills, right? They're the people that support what I do, and therefore I need to appease and make them happy. And this would happen when like you would hear a band have like a great first record and their second record would sound mostly like their first record and their third record would sound nothing like it and sell like dog shit, because you can't repeat that process forever. You can't keep making the same thing over and over again and A, get the same return, and B, be happy creatively. And I think this constant bug fix thing is just a natural part of the industry in miniature wargaming growing, where because there are more fans and they're louder and creators and companies have more access to them because of social media and stuff like that, there's a natural thing where they start to, I don't want to use the word cater, but they start to give more time probably considering what those people are saying they're wanting than they do to what we need to make as a business or as creatives to make the thing we want to make and to make it how we want to make it. And they kind of forget why they're successful. I think there's great examples of that in like just pop culture right now with like Marvel. You know what I mean? Like every movie was Iron Man for a while, right? Like everybody was trying to be Robert Downey Jr. and be quippy and be funny and be like subversive, right? To like the genre, to make it more adult. And then eventually everyone's just like, we just don't care. Like it's just the same movie, you know, reskinned over and over and over again. Like we just don't care. Everything can't be part of some giant collective prequel. Like you need to just make something that can stand on its own for once and have that be a fun, interesting story. And so I think those bug fixes and constant tinkering with your product come from that, like, well, you're paying my bills, I got to keep you happy thing. And I think it's a trap. I think it's a trap, especially in this particular industry and product line, where there is no other product line I can think of where a product exists both physically and metaphysically. And this is the really, truly interesting thing about miniature wargaming, is you have a Venn diagram of people who are interested in miniatures because of how they look. And they'll never put them on the table and they'll never play with them, but they'll paint them, collect them, obsess over the lore and the story of them. And so the physical value of that miniature is the miniature itself. But then they also have this metaphysical value right? It's not a magic card. A magic card doesn't have anything but metaphysical value. It's a piece of cardboard or Pokemon card, right? Miniatures, well, I guess that's a lie. The art itself can have an intrinsic value, I guess, on that card. But the metaphysical value of what it does is 99% of the value, right? Or the rarity, which is a false commodity value. Miniatures have this thing where they have a physical attribute and a physical satisfaction to them, and even a sense of accomplishment where if you've painted it really nicely and you're really proud of it, you want to keep it. But then they have this metaphysical thing that I think companies are way overvaluing right now, right? The cost of the rules something has is the cost you're paying the developer to write the rules. The cost of the physical object is way more of your investment and is way more valuable. And if your customers, I think, value the piece of miniature in front of them a lot, then you have this 40-year dynasty at Games Workshop where now their intellectual property is their most valuable thing. And they've started ceaselessly tinkering with their rules. I think they're actually going to pull back on that now. I think they've realized what a trap that is. And it feels like I feel like someone somewhere has rung a bell. And the thing with Games Workshop is it's a slow boat. It's a huge boat, so it turns very slowly. So we as customers don't notice the turns. But I have a very strong suspicion those turns are going to start to become broader. And it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to happen over time. They don't just jerk the wheel on the boat. But with smaller companies especially, and we have parables in this industry. Guild Ball's an example where the developers straight up said, like, they kind of like put their foots in their mouths saying they blamed the customers with like, you guys demanded this perfection of games and it ruined all of our design space and it ruined this and ruined that. And I was like, oh, I think there's truth in there, but I think you probably could have said this in a more diplomatic way to the people that were also paying the bills, right? Like you effectively guaranteed those customers never come back if you decide you want to re-release Guild Ball. And like a privateer press where I don't think they'll ever admit it. You know, they've sold their company now. Like they've sold their company to Steamforged Games, ironically. And I don't think they'll ever admit that obsession with the game eventually eroded people who valued the physical objects they were selling, you know what I mean, as customers. And you can come back to that. You can steer your boat back to that. But you've lost a lot of people along the way that you weren't paying attention to losing. You know what I mean? Like you're so busy kind of like on the chalkboard showing your equations that are perfect, you don't realize when the lights come back on, the classroom's empty and there's nobody taking the class anymore. Nobody cares. So I think it'll be interesting. People laughing about my camera woes. Ben Puffer asks, what did you think is the most interesting skirmish game to come out this year? There's some good contenders out here this year. The problem is that because of the way my brain works, I can't tell sometimes if games I covered last year didn't come out until this year. So like, I'm having a Time Lord moment where I don't know when I am. I'm in late 2024. So yes. Okay. Yeah, I think a bunch of really interesting things came out this year. Some of which you haven't actually seen me play yet. I have a rule book I'll be reviewing this weekend called Freaks, which I'm pretty excited about. You haven't seen me play another game called Blackout yet, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, I think the skirmish world in general is very heavily populated right now. Fallout Tactics was really, really good because it just cleaned up a game I already liked a lot. It leans into its army lists too much, though. Yeah, get back to me on that. I think when I do my roundup for the year, at the end of the year, I'll have more to say about that. My problem is right now I'm trying to decide. I don't want to speak out of turn and be like something that came out last year is the best game of 2024, which it might be. Malev's just commiserating with the abusive relationship he has with his camera setup, which is very funny. Dun Grizzly says, did the One Box Wargame start in the GMG community? No, Malev is just a part of my community, but he has his own wonderful community on Twitch, which you should go check out if you haven't. And because we are kind of constant collaborators and friends, I will stand for everything Malev does, because that's just how we get the rising tide to lift all ships. Tom Kush says metal, sure. Richard Wong says, after working on plastic minis, working with metal seems more work than before. It is more work. Like, it simply is. And also sometimes isn't, because metal miniatures tend to come in less pieces. That is the one thing I will say is, putting together Infinity miniatures that come in 3 pieces, it is more work preparing the miniature to be assembled, but the actual putting together and putting on a base, once the prep is done, is far less work, because it's just not 1,000 pieces. Building some of the current Games Workshop miniatures that come in like, because they're AI sliced to fit on the frame with maximum efficiency, it's like, I hate building these miniatures. They are way too much work. And you still have to clean them. You know what I mean? Like, every time you clip something off a sprue, there's a point on that miniature that needs to be cleaned. So it's not like there's no cleaning involved. It's just metal miniatures, I think, feel like more cleaning to do. Brian Krantz is out. He's in a meeting. See you, man. I'm going to go to... I'm going to do my super chat from Andrew real fast. And then the chat is way away from me. So I'm going to go jump into the mailbag. And we'll talk in the mailbag for a minute. And then we'll come back. Ogre Bowl is OBWG. Oh, uses the basic Ogre Man-Eaters kit too. Okay. Ogre Bowl. Cool. I had no idea what that was. Andrew says, yeah, boy, I've been painting 40k orcs, and man, points intent, there's so much less. I got to paint a ton of minis, at least I want. At least of what I want, which is annoying. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because we talked about that when I did the 2nd edition 40k stuff, remember? I did Rogue Trader in 2E. And it's funny because I might have someone to do 3rd edition with, which I'm excited about because I would really, really, really like to finally do 3rd edition 40k and continue that 40k through the ages thing that I was doing. Because it would basically end at 4th with universal special rules, because then it would go to 8th. Because it's the same game 4th through 7th effectively, with just like adding Unbound and adding super heavies and flyers. Like, the game doesn't change. Yeah, and I really want to do that. Anyway, but yes, the army sizes are catastrophically bigger. Like, shockingly bigger. A 40k 2nd edition army is like maybe 25, 30 models tops. And it's like, it could be 100 models now for 40k, including like giant, huge ass mega things, which is crazy. One box war game. Feels super smart. Oh, OBWG is one box war game. Okay. One box war games. I have kids. I know that morning feeling. Okay, yeah. I don't know why I couldn't get the one box war game thing. All right, let's do the mailbag. And so we got from the patrons today. Our first question is from Zug1974. This is a follow-up to your fantasy artists as punk rock icons versus branded art from last week. Okay. There are exactly 100 interior artists credited in the 2024 Player's Handbook. I only knew one, Wayne England. If you know what you're looking for, you'll find them, but since there are nearly invisible credits, I'm saying like 6-point type at 20% opacity, next to the art in the printed book, it's tough. Oddly enough, this is easier in the digital version because the artists are credited next to their work. At least they're doing better than GW, where designs are being used in the old rulebooks and no credit at all. I find this particularly egregious since Wayne England died in 2016, which means Wizards of the Coast and GW have the rights and his family may have no idea his work is still being used or compensated for it. That's a really interesting, yeah. So Zug is following up on a comment I made a little while ago about one of the problems right now with art in this sphere, and one of the reasons why, I think for me, and I can't speak for everybody, right? But for me, art feels less interesting and books feel less interesting because of the style guiding. And Jay and I had a big conversation about this when we talked about the Player's Handbook 2024. And it's because when you style guide something, everything gets kind of homogenized, right? All of the rules, or not rules, the art in a book is like to a certain style, and you can't really tell who did what, basically. And that led to a comment about how Workshop has reused a ton of Warhammer Fantasy Battle art in the old world books, and they've thrown a sepia overlay on it. So no matter who drew it or who painted it, it all kind of looks style guided the same because it's just all been sepia toned to make it look old. And I don't think anybody's credited in the entire book. Like in any of the old world books, they're not credited. And then talking about like the fact that these artists can't eat off their reputations. No one's taken like, you know, John Blanche isn't getting paid $100,000 to go do an appearance. You know what I mean? Like most people who are in this industry in fantasy and sci-fi, eventually if they make something popular enough, like George R.R. Martin can just go to a convention and make $100,000 to sit and be like wined and dined and to answer some questions and shake hands and glad hand with people. That's a most working artist's entire year, right? And most people don't get there, but because they know who these people are and they recognize them and they feel like they're semi-famous, they don't think that that's the case, that you have to constantly be working, you know what I mean? And that you're, you know, when you sell a painting, it's gone. That work, it doesn't get paid for it again. So that all that time you worked on that thing, it's just gone. And I think it's a really interesting point Zug's making about the fact that Wayne's family might not know that his art's being used and might not be making, like, we don't know that. Obviously, it could be the case that it is still being done. But a lot of art that these artists did under contract doesn't belong to them anymore. And when they're gone, it doesn't pay the bills for their grandkids or their kids or whoever. That's a really interesting observation. I didn't realize Wayne's art was going to be in that Player's Handbook. I don't have that new Player's Handbook yet, obviously, so I didn't know. But I did know that his art was in all the old world books. Genie29 says, doing the SoCal Open this Saturday, I wanted to ask, what are your 5 hot tips on how to do a tourney or convention when you're over 40? I should do a video like this. I bet it will hit a ridiculously high number of views. Okay, yeah. Like a fit check for going to a big event, like a multi-day event. First things first, always warm up before you exercise. And that's true for conventions. If you've been sitting on your ass for 2-3 weeks before you go to one of those conventions, you're going to hurt. You're just going to hurt afterwards. Just go for walks, be on your feet more than normal for the first little while. Just practice walking around. I would just go for a long ass walk in whatever your shoes you're planning on wearing to that convention every day the week before. And that should get you, put together. Same thing with the shoes. Do not wear a new pair of shoes to a convention. Break in a pair of shoes like you've never broken in a pair of shoes, but make sure they're still comfortable. So not to the point where like they're your dirt shoes you mow the grass in, but like to the point where you can slip them on and slip them off without untying them. You know that pair of shoes I'm talking about. You need those nice, comfy, soft-soled shoes because you're going to be on your feet forever. Get a reusable water bottle and drink so that you have to piss at least like 3 times a day. Always be hydrated because the thing with big convention rooms that people don't realize is they are pumping air in and out of there constantly to control the climate. It is way drier in a convention hall typically or a hotel ballroom than you're normally used to, and you will get headaches because your vascularity will contract based upon the amount of moisture in you. You're basically being dried out. You notice this especially if you ever go to LVO and you go to one of those casinos where you can still smoke indoors, because not only are you in a desert, you're in a desert where all the cigarette smoke is being aggressively pumped out and filtered, and all the moisture is being taken out of the room because they want you thirsty too for the bar. So yeah, bring yourself like a reusable water bottle like an Nalgene and just be humming water constantly. I've seen guys at conventions with like Camelbacks and stuff too. If you can get them, I really like there's like an orange electrolyte tablet you can get for water bottles too. It's basically just like a Gatorade tablet, but it's like fizzy. And you can just throw them in your Nalgene and grab some electrolytes as well. I really like them. If you're in the States, you can get them at REI. But if you get them in Canada, you can get them at usually like a Mountain Equipment Co-op. Although Mountain Equipment Co-op kind of sucks now. Sorry, shout out to Mountain Equipment Co-op. Atmosphere's gotten better, although nobody makes their own clothes anymore. I should do a video like that. Yeah. So what am I at? Oh yeah, and bring snacks. Like just bring snacks, and whatever your preferred method of like painkiller is, like acetaminophen or ibuprofen, because you're gonna have a bunch of wear and tear on your body. It's just that thing that like hobbyists, kind of like, what's the words, are kind of labeled as sedentary very often. Most of them aren't today, although I will say that in previous generations, they were far more sedentary. There's a lot of gym bros that are in the hobby these days. And so, just the amount of like tear you're going to put on your body might be more than normal, even if you are in good shape, because guys who go to the gym don't necessarily have the best like mobility and cardio. So get yourself a little prep kit, and you'll probably have a lot better time. Brian Krantz says, thoughts on GW adding MDF to their kill team starter? I'm sure it won't be any cheaper than plastic at retail, but I definitely removes a hurdle to gameplay as an entry-level product. I think it's a fucking great idea. I think anything that... So one, they can afford to do it to a higher quality. You know what I mean? Like, there shouldn't be anybody who does anything better than them. There just shouldn't be. Like, if you have an unlimited budget, their number one issue typically is because they want to do it all internally. There will be people who do it better outside because they're learning it from scratch instead of going and mining things people already know. So like, for instance, I'm sure their MDF will be good. Is it going to look as good as what Warsenal makes? No, because it's not going to have Tom airbrushing it digitally. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be like a level of, like, that's nice, but Tom Shadle's an incredible painter and he's taught himself a very specific skill to make Warsenal's digital painting on their matte, you know what I mean, products look like he actually physically painted it by hand. They've done something incredible with that. I think what will end up happening is the workshop stuff will be good. It'll be great for a starter set. If they decide to lean into it though, they will immediately get compared to the other people on the market and have to like level themselves up super fast. I do think it's a good idea though, because I think it's just another thing that removes obstacles to people playing. Milliput says, how is the English in the Infinity N5 lore book? I am pleased to announce they got someone to actually write that book or at least edit it so that the grammar's correct. The biggest problem in the Warcry book, because this is what I'm not going to dance around it, the Warcry book is gobbledygook. And it's really unfortunate because it's not the content of what's being said that's gobbledygook. It's the fact that it uses run-on sentences 5 miles long and starts sentences with and, a capital and, period, capital and. Like, it doesn't follow English grammar because it's been sort of like mechanically translated, probably by either AI or some type of translation program, and then not edited. Like, the Oxford comma gets abused horribly in that book. The Infinity book is much, much better. The Infinity book is also much more text light. I would say the word count in the Infinity book is actually way lighter. And one of the reasons for that is they had more art. They had more picture assets. There's more pretty stuff to look at in the book. So they didn't feel like they had to fill it up with more text. And the N5 lore book is an update to an existing universe. So there's not as much world building required because there's kind of some presupposition of what you know and don't know. If you like the lore in Infinity, it's funny because I just loaned it to Jordan to read through. And shout out to Jordan. I have like 973 texts from him in the last 24 hours that are just him going through the lore book and being like, oh, and then this happened. Oh, and then this happened. And he's just so excited and updating me. So if you're a lore head like he is, 100%, you're going to love it. And then CG says, YouTuber question, where did you get your opening logo animation made? I didn't get it made. It was sent to me very nicely. And the credits are in my YouTube videos of who made it. Yeah, I've never asked or solicited any of this stuff. People are just like, hey, I made you this cool thing. Do you want to use it? And I'd be like, sure, I'm a dummy. That sounds incredible. And that's what happened. So I got a new animation. And they're all credited in the descriptions usually. Let's go back to the chat and see what's going on. I have my audio turned off on this stupid phone, right? Because I'm doing this the wrong way. Yes, I am. Okay, fantastic. Jesus, Ash. All right. Oh my God, I've got so many things that I have to go back to. Okay, yeah. Okay, thankfully the super chat from Andrew shows me where I left off. Shane Bagley says, love the content. Any chance on more Crusade with Nick again? I really hope so. Because I loved Crusade and I'd like to get back to it for 10th edition 40K. The big problem is right now, Kill Team is a more fun version of 40K for me to play. That being said, Dave Koska and I are planning on playing 40K before he goes to a tournament he's going to. Ardboys, I think he's going to somewhere in like upstate New York or Maryland. And he hasn't played 40K in months. And he's like, do you want to play 40K again? I was like, sure, I'll play 40K. He's like, I thought you didn't like 40K. I was like, I'll play anything with people I like. Right? Like, I don't hate 40K. I hate playing miserable games of 40K. So I might actually be playing a 2,000 point game of 40K very soon. And like willingly too, which is exciting. And maybe we'll do Crusade because I feel like Dave would be fun to do a Crusade with because he's in it for the plot line just like I am. Jim's back. I don't know if it's discussed. Will Ash be reviewing the Kill Team starter set? Oh, yeah, maybe. Dan Fox says, I think the constant bug fixing is also more of a video gamification of tabletop games. Video games constantly update and fix. People now want that for mini games too. Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, again, that's a generational thing, is that but like, think about what it's funny. When you fix something in a video game, it's almost invisible. And it doesn't matter to 90% of people playing the video game unless they're playing it super seriously and competitively. Like, I get that that's happening. But it's also removed a bunch of the fun from video games. Like, for instance, Super Smash Brothers and Street Fighter don't want to issue a ton of fixes. Because the point of getting good at that game is, one, it's like a reflex game. And two, figuring out the small, tiny advantage things is like part of being good at the game. Because it still requires like a dexterity step. I think in video games, the thing with fixes is you still have to be good at the game, right? In miniature games, because there's no like dexterity thing, it's just decision treeing. A lot like how they had to fix things like StarCraft, where it was more decision tree stuff. You could actually have it be like a problem. Yeah, I don't know. But I do think that the cross-pollination of talent, where the video game industry is bringing designers into the tabletop industry, like, I don't know if you guys know this, but the guy that wrote Age of Sigmar 4, his job for the last 10 years before working for Games Workshop was working in video games. It wasn't working in tabletop games, but a game's a game, right? Like, I think they're basically, the wall between video games and tabletop games is coming down, because the reality of it is, and I got told this 20 years ago by my friend Miles Holmes. He made Full Auto, a bunch of other games. And he's the author of Roadkill. And he actually wrote a bunch of the Privateer Press novels for War Machine too. His whole thing was that the only difference between video games and tabletop games is that an engineer rolls the dice for you in video games. The design element's still the same. You still conceptualize an experience the same way and write the rules out the same way. It's just, is the computer doing the measuring and the dice rolling for you or not? And that's the prime. And I know that sounds like reductive, but from a designer point of view, if you're not also the engineer, the coder, the graphic guy, the art guy, and in a video game world, that's all divided into separate tasks. It's too big a job for one person typically, without being like a Papers, Please, Return of the Obra Dinn one-man solo artist. And if you ever want to see someone who's basically the like Sean Sutter of like video game designs, go play Return of the Obra Dinn. Or World of Horror, or Papers, Please. Those are like one-man job video games. That's the relic blade of the video game world. It is possible to still do it, but yeah, that's that importation, that wall breaking down, that acceptance that a designer's a designer, I think is now importing a lot of that video game stuff like you're talking about into tabletop. Triple Digi Game says, the first time I really remember seeing it on a large scale was with the faction community updates from Privateer Press. That was it. And how'd that go? Adrian says, Ash blew off Malev on Kill Team. Yes, I did. And I'll blow you off too. Jim Kerman says, I just received Will Ramon's latest Forbidden Songbook, Endless Horrors Between the Stars, and it's gorgeous. I love these products and games. Yeah, Jim, I mean, that whole KRD's like whole line. I'm so grateful for there being guys like him out there who just make something because they want to make it. And they make it with like heart and whimsy, and it blows up. Like, it has so much. It's funny because I think I'm going to review Freaks this weekend. I think Freaks wants to be KRD, which is going to be a funny thing to say because Osprey is like a mainstream publisher, wants to like kind of capture some of that indie cred. And I don't think it has the same heart and whimsy. Like, it's like a produced version of that, if that makes sense. And we'll talk about that when I do the review. But like, it is interesting how I'm so grateful for people like KRD and Will and like the Somhole series. The JDI says, does GW have an alternative now they went full in on the competitive side of the hobby, missions, card updates, etc., etc.? No. I mean, they can pivot. I think that it's honestly all they have to do is stop making noise about it. here's the number one thing that you do to change a community or a culture is you starve it. Make someone else be the hero. The issue that I think Workshop and a lot of these companies run into is they now employ the generation of people who wish that the thing they're now making the focus of the business from a broadcasting point of view had been the focus when they were customers. So if you think about it in terms of like generational lag, my generation no longer works for Games Workshop. Me and Jay, we're 10 years out now, right? Jay's almost 15 years out. And while we were there, the players were developing the LVO and the Nova Open and Adepticon. Like one of my old coworkers at Workshop, Adepticon was conceived in his basement, right? Like, so as that stuff was happening and we're working for Workshop, what happens is when we leave, we're replaced by those people who were the community members then, and they import their idea of what the community should be based upon what they built. So it's going to generationally shift and change into the thing they think the hobby is. And that's fine. That's totally okay. I think what happens is, at the end of the day, whoever is in front of the microphone will change forever, because the people behind the microphone that you guys never see, that make the decisions, all they look at is the sheet, right? And the sheet is the thing that means that the company survives or doesn't survive. That means that the bearer of that ultimate responsibility, the questions they're answering is really, do the 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people that work for us keep eating and keep living in their homes and keep being able to like make a living in the weirdest possible job, right? Like, and it does take people who can make what feel like on the outside the wrong decision or the hard decision or an unpopular decision to keep that happening sometimes. And so I guarantee the people in front of the microphone today aren't going to be the people in front of the microphone in 10 years. Because when I was there was people that weren't there anymore that had been there before me that were in front of the microphone. And 10 years from now, those same people that are there now will be doing something else, right? Even if it's behind the scenes doing something else inside of a big company, they'll be doing something else. Like, if you think about the fact that, like, when I worked for Games Workshop, Warlord Games was two of my old bosses and a White Dwarf editor going off and starting their own company because they just left Games Workshop. And now you think of Warlord Games as being this, like, venerable wargaming industry thing. They were like an upstart, a bunch of guys who just left Workshop and were my old boss back then company back when that was happening. So when it happens, I don't think it'll happen in like an announcement shocking kind of way. I think you'll just hear less and less articles start going up about competitive stuff, and less products will come out that support that, and more products will come out that support a different way of gaming or a different way of playing or the movies they're making or the books they're selling. And it'll just be a little bit different. That's all. And it'll starve. It'll just starve out because it won't be the thing that people are sort of putting up in lights anymore. And so it won't be as exciting for the people on the ground. Will Knox says Guild Ball's already been re-released and the hype's dead. Yeah. And everybody's like, wait, that happened? Yeah, that's the thing. It did. Tom Q says Malvo Plastics shuddering. Yes. MLF says, so hyped for the idea of 3rd edition 40K. Yes, I'd love to do that. Well, anybody who wants to come in and play 3rd edition 40K with me, I have a project. We need to do the starter set. And then once the starter set's done, we can collect other armies. So my plan was paint the 3rd edition starter set in my, like, Through the Ages Space Marine chapter colors. Because that's the nice thing about 1, 2, 3, 4th editions. I just add the starter box minis to the Flesh Tears army that I did for Rogue Trader and, like, carry it forward through time, right? So we can see it in every edition. Eventually I put it in a display cabinet and it's all done. And then someone's going to paint the Dark Eldar in that box too. And then we can just do whatever we want. Brian Cran says, guess I didn't miss the mailbag. No, you didn't. Jim Kerman's asked, any thoughts on the redesign for Warhammer Underworlds? Killed off all the current cards. I think it's fine. I'll be honest. Like, that game, the last edition of Underworlds was really, really, really good. And it's funny because it's the edition that was written by Matt, who's the guy who wrote 4th edition. Like, you can see, it's funny how you can see Matt Rose's rise through Games Workshop, where he wrote the Rivals deck version of Underworlds and, like, cleaned up Underworlds and then moved on to Age of Sigmar. And now they're doing, his design philosophy is showing up everywhere in Workshop. I think he's had a big impact on their design stuff. My thoughts are yay. Like, I like Underworlds. I think it's a great version of the game. I just need it to be aggressively priced. If it's aggressively priced as an introductory product for Games Workshop stuff, then I think it's great. If it's not, I think it'll be a flop. I think they've lost their gas on that. And I think if they really wanted to make a new edition of Underworlds, they would have skinned it for 40K. That's my thing. I don't think making a better game of Underworlds does shit for Underworlds right now. I think if they'd made it for 40K, it would have been better. Because then people would have gone for it for the minis and you could have gotten them to try Underworlds. I think no one's going to try a variation of a thing you've already made this late in the game if it's already lost gas. And that's to say, I think it's going to be a spectacular game that a lot of people aren't going to give a chance because they've already been down this road too many times. So if you want my 2022 prediction or 2024 prediction, 2025 prediction for Underworlds, I think they're going to give it less support than they did in the previous editions. And I think this is its last chance at its current edition. And then, yeah, and that's it. And I think we'll see something different if they do it again, or they'll just get rid of it. Time Guy says, thank you for answering. You're very welcome. Corey says, you mean I can convince someone to work for exposure? I don't know what that means. I'm so way behind now. Crownblade says, go to a convention attorney, deodorant. I mean, that's just a go outside piece of advice, Crownblade. That's not that shouldn't be a go to an event piece of advice. I'm more like a Jack Dunphy where I'm like, why are you wearing a tuxedo? Well, it's after 5, Lemon. I'm not a farmer. You know what I mean? I feel like that way about deodorant. You just wear deodorant. You should probably smell good. It'll be good for your life. Ryan Dunphy says, as someone who used to be the operations manager for my local con and still vends at the same show every year, Ash's recommendations here are perfect. Also chapstick because it's dry. Yes, definitely. Okay, Vet Dad, you says, do you think that Warhammer Old World will bring back sieges and castle modes? Yeah, when they run out of like arcane journals, that's when they'll hit that stuff. They'll do a campaign book and they'll do a siege book. They won't do it in between. And there's 8 factions in the initial launch, and we're 4 in. Dwarves, Orcs, Chaos. What was the other one? I think we're 3 in. Oh, and Tomb Kings. We're 4 in. Yeah, we're 4 in. And Bretonians, 5 in. So there's 3 left. So 3 more books to do, end of the year. And then by summer next year, they'll probably have a campaign book with that stuff in it. I'd bet. Splitfinity says you become con jerky. That's true. Ian Millington Davey says, always know a good gaming con by the amount of people gaming there with shoes kicked off onto the table. That's true. Tobias Newman says, hey, Ash, any thoughts on the new Kill Team starter set? I'm on the fence. The intro book looks a cool way to learn the game. Yeah, I think it looks great. I think the most important thing about that box would be how it's priced. Because I think it's a great intro to 40K. And I think including the Warhammer Space Marine Heroes miniatures in there is a good idea because they've already done the Kill Team stuff for the last one. The Space Marine one had Kill Team rules for Kill Team, which was cool. So using them in this format, I think is great. And then giving rules because those Nurgle miniatures are fantastic. Finally having a reason to paint those Nurgle miniatures, I think is great. Oh my God, so much convention stuff. Ghost Button says, as a contract copy editor, I've lost half of my work to AI in the last year. Ghost Button says, that's fucking abysmal. Because if you've lost half of your work to AI in the last year and the dog shit that's producing gets to go to market, that shows that AI can't do everything. Because holy crap, man, there's some like, you need a human editor. I'm sorry. I don't care if like you can expedite editing work through AI. You can do some quick and dirty button pushing to speed up the process, but someone needs to read that thing front to back that is native in the language it's written in, or you are releasing some absolute dog shit into the market and it shouldn't be allowed. Like, oh, I feel bad because I think companies are being duped by it in the translation world because they have no idea what they're looking at half the time. You can't put a book in Japanese in front of me and me be able to tell if it's been translated properly or not. I'm not going to know. Even if I can read some of it, I'm not going to know if the syntax is right, if the grammar's right sometimes. I'm just going to think I'm the dummy that doesn't get it. So like, I'm not even mad at the company. I'm mad at whoever they hired to do it. Like, honestly, because anyone with any native language skills that's any kind of copy editor would know that. And I hate when jobs get replaced by automation, just in general, when they are jobs in art. I don't mind certain things being replaced by automation. I don't think we should be digging rare earth minerals out of the hills with sticks to make cell phones. But I do think that, you know, someone who's got like a design or technical job in the arts probably can't have, they can have their lives improved by that kind of automation, but their job shouldn't go away. I think that's insane. What else we got here? Oh my god. Caldorf says, any stuff coming with the changes to Underworlds? Just the stuff that's been previewed by GW. TXAG007 says, hey gang, hey man. And Matty Lumley says, massively dived into Silver Bayonet recently. There's something insane going on with GW to picking up 40, 50 models for the same price as GW's HQ model. Yeah, I mean, at the other half of that, I worry that certain plastic companies like Renedra or Perry's should probably be upping their prices a little bit to keep up with what's going on in their markets and stuff like that. Because then, like, there are companies whose products don't cost nearly as much as Games Workshop's, where the problem then becomes like, well, why is shipping so much? And I only want to order $60 worth of stuff. Why is shipping $45? Because like shipping prices are insane now to get anything from anywhere. It's a mess. Like pricing's just a mess everywhere, and not through the faults of the companies for the most part, but through the fact that some of them do it like very critically and clinically to make sure that they have growth or they have, you know, shareholder value or whatever. And some of them do it because they want to make sure they're still doing it the way it was done. Oh, I got another super chat from Andrew. Thanks, man. Says, what's up, gamers? Just a reminder, if you like the content, the best way you can keep Ash out of the rain is Patreon. So if you can, join us over there, keeping this man fed. More importantly, letting my kids sleep indoors. All right, so let's go to, well, I guess just to finish that thought that they just had, for instance, you won't be getting all the N5 content that you're getting the next 6 weeks before and after N5 launches, without there being Patreon. Because like I have to order that stuff, you know, to get it in early and to have it done the way it's getting done. So there's gonna be some what's in it for you reasons too, right? Where that stuff just doesn't happen otherwise, bringing models in and stuff. All right, going back to the mailbag because we're just about running out of time. I've been going super long this time around. Gizmo Math Boy says, I think this is a bit of a dumb question, but are there any good factions in 40k? As someone who isn't a player, my little reading of the lore suggests the Lamenters, but I thought I would get your opinion. No, they're all monsters. There's no good guys in 40k, period. End statement, nobody. It's a cautionary tale. The whole thing is a cautionary tale, but a fascist autocracy with expansionist views taking over, running into galactic monsters and becoming the monsters that they face down. There's no good guys. There's no good guys, no bad guys. It's all painted in shades of gray. Where individuals inside a system can be good, but the systems itself are evil and monstrous because at scale, we're not designed to be this organism. You know what I mean? Like, I think 40k is the cautionary tale of a terrestrial organism outgrowing its terrestrial origins and being maladapted basically to what it's trying to do. So there can be good and wholesome and pure individuals inside any system, but the factions and systems of Warhammer 40,000 are all monsters. Yeah, even just from the point of view of the Lamenters go around, you have to think about, are the Lamenters good guys? Well, think about it just practically. They're a monastic order of killers sent to exterminate other races, and their ranks are formed up entirely of kidnapped children who've been surgically altered against their will. So, like, find the good in that. You know what I mean? Like, if you just boil it down to, like, the objective view of what they are and what they do, how are they good guys? You know, like, what's the moral good there? I think there's not really any ambiguity in that. Kevin California says, is Kevin California related to Robert California, the greatest character ever, played by Red from The Blacklist? James Spader. Any chance you will do a Let's Play with Monster Fight Club Cyberpunk Red? I've had like 3 or 4 times where I've been in touch with the Monster Fight Club and it's just like petered out. So there's a chance. I always say hi to them at events and stuff like that. Maybe it'll happen. I'm sure we'll play it at some point. Gary Jensen says, hypothetical, society collapses, you're in the bunker with close friends and family, space is tight, what games make the cut? Honestly, a deck of cards, because you can play 7 million games with a deck of cards. Actually, I'm going to say like 10 decks of cards, because you burn through decks of cards if you play with them too much. I like every game of like deck of cards game. Board games, I'm going to say Scrabble, obviously. We're going to go with never Monopoly, ever, because that would just end with the bunker unraveling and us all killing each other. Because it's the landlord's game. It's about how teaching that's evil, and society is basically corrupt based on that idea, and that space shouldn't be space to live in shouldn't be something someone else owns and then profits from you from. And then Scrabble probably for literacy because it's a great way to teach kids how to read. Apples to Apples would wear out as society devolves because all of like the things wouldn't exist anymore. Like think about just like apples wouldn't exist after a while. So like how would we do apples to apples? It would be like a generational thing that would just run out, whereas literacy would keep going. Hero Quest, obviously, because it's an imagination game with great pieces. And then probably just like a stack of RPG manuals, because then you can do Theater of the Mind and escape the hellish horror of the bunker for a while. And that'd be it. And then SW says, I've recently been playing games of the new Kill Team, which I've been enjoying overall, but I'm finding the rules leave me a little cold. In comparison to Warcry, which I've been enjoying since the latest edition came out a couple years ago. In particular, I love the pick-up and play feel of the AOS miniatures that can be used. Commercially, it's clear that Kill Team will be more successful than Warcry. Is it purely down to the relative strengths of 40k and Age of Sigmar brands, or is there something else at play here? So I think you could make an incredible edition of Warcry that's just more time. Like if Warhammer Cursed City had been Warcry, I think Warcry would be one of the most popular games they'd ever made. They keep doing like, and maybe this is like I think it's in their design board for choices for Age of Sigmar right now, where they're trying to make Age of Sigmar all brandable, its own unique fantasy session. So like, if I'm going to buy a box of Kill Team stuff, I might use it in 40k. I'm never going to use those weird monster trees, those weird crocodile trees that were available in all the Warcry starters in Age of Sigmar, because they don't really impact the game at all. Like they have cool platforms, you can like jump up and down on them, but they don't block line of sight really. Like they wouldn't have like without writing rules for them for Age of Sigmar, which no one wants because no one wants the imbalance of terrain in your games or random events anymore, because, the death of fun. You're not going to use that stuff. Whereas like a set of generic fantasy ruins, like a cool like Tudor-style cityscape, kind of semi in ruins, Mordheim style, that's going to be something people are going to buy just to go like, I want this set of fantasy miniatures. And a cool set of like fantasy soldiers that you can use in any fantasy session of things people are going to buy. And I think that's what it comes down to is I love the wacky craziness of Warcry, and it speaks to me because I love innovation. I love newness. You know what I mean? Like I love novelty in my games and in like being surprised and delighted by products. Not everybody wants that if they're coming in new. They want something familiar and recognizable. And then you can add and layer in the novelty on top of that and have crazy wacky stuff on top. But I think the core stuff needs to be stuff that's a little more familiar and approachable to an outside audience. I think that's what Warcry has been lacking the last little while. I think it's why all Chaos War, like the whole original version of Warcry was kind of an allegory for like gangs of New York. You know what I mean? Like with the 8 points being this like city where it was all supposed to be going down. And I think they thought that would catch on more, but they didn't lean into it hard enough. They kind of sterilized it to make it like PG-13, whereas if it had been like hard R, fun, but they made it serious instead of fun. Part of what made Mordheim work was that it was fun. Part of what made Gangs of New York worked is you liked the villain, right? Like you liked Bill the Butcher. As much as he's a monster, you liked him and what he represented. You liked the sheriff. You liked the constable. Like they're bad people doing bad things, but they are charismatic. There's no charismatic returning character. You know what I mean? Mordheim had its Uli and Marquand, who are these like almost like constant narrators that would like go through it and talk about what's happening and tell the tale as like they're like the drunken old man in a bar kind of. There's nothing like that in the Warcry universe, and so it didn't have the character to catch on. I wish it had, because I think the 8 points was a really novel idea, and I liked the idea of like a chaos city that we're seeing the inside of and like what life's like in there. They just didn't lean hard enough into it. I think they chickened out at the end, and I think that game got rewritten a bunch of times. Holy crap, Tobias Newman! I don't know what 100 Danish francs are, but that's incredible. Thank you so much. SEK. I think that's what SEK means. I think those are Danish. Or Swedish. I'm not even sure. Thank you so much. That's crazy, man. Yes, we'll keep the roof on. And then let's go back to the chat, and we'll close this out because I think I've been going for like an hour and a half now. Brian Sheen says investment stinklings are a bastard to assemble. Yes, they are. Mark Bredman says, oosh, I got another one. I love lots of one love from Manchester and Dungeon Punks. What's up, Bredman? I still to this day have a Dungeon Punk sticker on the back of my car on my like bike rack. So just know that here in Southern Ontario, Dungeon Punks is just as represented as in Manchester. Pinocchio says, did you intend to produce some Dropfleet 2.0 content since it's new? Are you interested in something like that? Spaceship games are so rare. Well, I'm playing Void Admiral, a Canadian-made Starship game with Bob. We're doing this from War Cradle next, which is James's Armored Clash, which is like the new Dystopian Wars 10 mil game. And I'm sure we will look at spaceships again after that, because Bob is obsessed with 10 mil games, so I'm sure it will happen at some point. Alan says 3rd edition with the update that allows for forced march, like 3rd edition, but I think it needs forced march and the sweeping advance changed to 3-inch moves. Alan, it's a retrospective, man. We're not looking for balance here. We're looking for fun. No one else is going to play this game competitively with us, Alan. But yes, I think part of what would happen was we'd play multiple games and we would bring out a chapter approved after the first one. And the point of the next game was to show what was changed in that chapter approved and like how changes used to be handled. You know what I mean? I think that's what I would do. Steve Yates says your Patreon address in the bottom of the feed is missing. Oh no, well, that sucks, but such is life. Oh, it's also the one, this is the image that's misspelled, which is great. Fantastic. Doing this so quickly, I grabbed an image overlay that says Gorilla Miniature Games. It's completely misspelled. Fuck. Fantastic. Don't care about anything. You guys can type anyway. Caldor says, if starting a Fallout minigame, should I go for factions or Wasteland Warfare? Factions. Yeah, factions for sure. Samo says, what do you think about a Song of Ice and Fire Tactics? I backed the crowdfund. Again, thank you to the patrons because I had heard nothing from Cool Mini for a long time. Basically, everyone I knew there had left. And so when A Song of Ice and Fire, it didn't fall apart, but it fell apart over the pandemic distribution-wise. And so Canada just couldn't get anything for a long time. And it was an in-person game. We kind of stopped playing it. And it never really picked back up again because everyone who'd been carrying it locally just stopped carrying it. When they couldn't get the product for 2 years, they were like, fuck it. Like, we just don't need to. We're not going to. There's a million products we can get. We'll just lean into those. And this happens. It's why distribution's a real problem for some games. But when I saw the Tactics game, I was like, this is a new game. I'll try it. So I backed the crowdfund. I keep getting updates from, I think it's GameFound is the one that they're using as a platform now. So I'll have it whenever the backers get it. It'll come in. But yeah, I haven't heard anything from Kuman. You're not in several years. They super disappeared after Dark Age and Wrath of Kings. Because I was doing a whole bunch of stuff with them promotion wise. And I even went to Cool Mini Expo 2017. And then their whole staff got turned over and they might not even know I exist because they're mostly just a one-off and done board game company now. Ryan Dunphy says, a human editor turned my game into my word vomit into something that people can actually play. 100%. Matty Lumley says, AI will hopefully equal the same thing as VR did. It'll be the big thing in a brief blip and it'll suddenly be forgotten for the existing technology because it was never necessarily a good thing. I think it'll be maladapted for a while until we run out of ideas on how to abuse it. Corporations try and abuse it until they realize it's not getting them what they actually want. And then they'll use it as a force multiplier for their existing workforce, probably. Matt Lagori says, question for Asked, are the solo rules for Steel Rift? I have the 3 rule books for it, but I wasn't sure if there's something inside a zine or something like that. Not that I know of, but that stuff's been fully handed over to the guys at Death Ray now, so they will be the ones to develop it. Alan says, LO in 40K, it's not Shades of Grey, it's all Grim Darkness. That's true. And then TXAG777 says, there are good girls in 40K and the Adeptus Sora readers. I mean, there's just, yeah, okay, never mind. I'm not doing it. Gizmo Math Boy says, yeah, that was my read on 40k being all bad all the way down, but I figured someone that knows the lore way better than I should confirm that. It's not like, you don't need to know the lore for any individual faction in 40k to know that they're all do the best they can in an absolutely terrible situation. Zug says, I love when people ask Richard Garfield what the best game of all time is, expecting him to say some fancy Subversive Euro, and he always just says poker. Yeah. There's a reason why card games are great. Like, I think one of the most incredible innovations is the deck of cards, because if you think of the number of ways that's been used, it's incredible. Like, and also the deck of cards, here's a fact you guys might not know. If any of you watching, there's 107 people in the chat right now watching this live. If you go pick up a deck of cards and shuffle it for any amount of time, that shuffle of cards in your hand is unique. Since the invention of a deck of cards, the number of times you would have to shuffle cards to pull a duplicate shuffle of cards is like 1 to the 65th million power. The number is so insanely high. It would, if you started shuffling cards once per second since the Big Bang, you would still be shuffling cards for something like 60 million years before you would hit one of every statistically shuffle of cards that you get in a deck of cards. It's an insane statistic. And just that very fact that like the chances of you not having a unique shuffle of cards are so infinitesimal as to basically be zero in a deck of cards, I think is fascinating with the number of games that have come out of it. It might be the greatest, besides dice, it might be like RNG and dice, it might be the greatest single innovation, because it's just another RNG methodology, right, with like some symbology on it. They're the original bespoke dice is a deck of cards, but they've caught on and they've stayed forever. They're kind of an incredible like innovation. People answering and listening to questions. Swedish crowns. Okay, it was Swedish crowns. Thank you, Tobias. And Mark Brevin says, that's why we love you. Oh, thanks, man. It was funny. I was thinking about Dungeon Punks the other day because I was thinking about all of the the fact that Jay and I have been talking about RPGs for a while. We haven't done a crossover yet, and all of the stuff that our buddy Nick's been doing with Breaker Press and Dungeon Crawl Classic. And we should all talk because like there's the guys out in California are doing too, who are kind of nominally Dungeon Punks. You know what I mean? Like it's funny how like there's a group of people across pretty much all the time zones that all kind of weirdly, like at Rich in Australia, all are weirdly affiliated to this Dungeon Punk thing and Corehammer. I'm trying to think of a time zone there isn't someone weird like distantly affiliated Dungeon Punks and Corehammer. And I can't actually think of a time zone that doesn't have it. I was just thinking Rich is in Australia, just did a bunch of stuff for Lone Wolf and RPG, still doing all of his great art. He did your logo and my logo. Yeah, it's wild. Anyway, I just think about you guys the other day. And then everybody else is off. All right. I think we're leaving. I think we're done. Everybody's talking about card games now, so I think I'm finished. All right, so what's going on in the future? All right. Coming up, I got a review to do for Blackout and for Freaks for Osprey, which is coming up this weekend. I got to get painting on this Mechanicum stuff and my Titan Legions to play some games on Thursday. I got to do a review for Gothic Sector, which you guys will see on Saturday. Once the painting's done for the Mechanicum Battle Group and all the support stuff for my Titans, we're moving on to the Battle for Singapore, so I can play that with Bob, who's scheduling people coming on Wednesday. Jay wants to run an Aliens one-shot for the Aliens RPG that we didn't get to do this week because he had some stuff come up. We're going to do it tomorrow. We'll probably do either next week or the week after. It'll be up as an audio stream podcast, like a live play podcast for the patrons. As soon as it's done, like the day it's done, and then we'll do it as like a video podcast maybe, or with some minis maybe, because I want to use minis for it too, coming up afterwards for everybody else. And then I think that's my week. And then it's Kat's birthday on Thursday. She's turning 11, which is killing me. And obviously, Kat's birthday's on Wednesday, and then Halloween's on Thursday. So the rest of my week is like just kid stuff, dad stuff, go, 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 go. And we'll be back on Wednesday next week for a patron-only version of this. So, yeah, man, a couple hundred people are hanging out today. Thanks so much for hanging out for the technical difficulties. I hope giving you a long one of these and getting to answer all your questions was the compensation you guys required. I'm glad this finally worked. I don't know what the voodoo is I'm living under right now, but it is strong. And you guys have a great rest of your week and a great Halloween if you are a participant in it. Otherwise, just a great end of your week and whatever it is you're working on hobby-wise. I hope it goes great. So have a good one. Bye, everybody, and love you all to my patrons.